Finding my dream home felt like a scene out of a movie. It wasn't some modern glass box. It was a sprawling 100-year-old mansion, a relic from a bygone era, complete with turrets and a wraparound porch. It was neglected, for sure. Paint was peeling, windows were boarded up, and the garden was a jungle. But I saw its soul. I saw the grand staircase, the stained glass windows, and the history etched into every floorboard. I poured my life savings into it, knowing it would be the project of a lifetime. The seller, an old woman whose family had built the house, was just happy someone wanted to love it back to life. She mentioned in passing that the land was part of the newer Oak Ridge Estates development, but that my property was grandfathered in, exempt from their rules. I didn't think much of it at the time. That was my first mistake. For the next 2 years, I lived and breathed restoration. Every weekend, every evening after my day job was spent at the mansion. I learned how to plaster walls, refinish hardwood floors, and even restore the intricate woodwork that had been hidden under layers of paint. Friends and family called me crazy, but as the months went by, the mansion started to wake up. The facade, once a sad, peeling gray, was now a stunning Victorian cream with dark green trim. I planted a garden full of roses and hydrangeas, just like the ones in old photos of the house. 'Twas a labor of love, and I was so proud of what it was becoming. The house was more than just wood and nails. It was my sanctuary, my masterpiece. The first letter from the Homeowners Association, or HOA, arrived on a Tuesday. I almost threw it away, thinking it was junk mail. It was a crisp, white envelope with an imposing logo. The letter was polite, but firm. It stated that my choice of exterior paint color, vintage cream, was not on their pre-approved list of colors. It also mentioned that my mailbox, a restored cast iron original, was non-commercial. I chuckled. They had to be kidding. My house was here a century before their cookie-cutter neighborhood even existed. I wrote back politely explaining that my property was not part of their association and was grandfathered in. Just as the previous owner had told me, I attached a copy of my deed, which made no mention of any HOA covenants. I figured that would be the end of it. How wrong I was. A week later, another letter arrived. This one was less polite. It was a formal notice of violation, listing not only the paint and mailbox, but now also my unapproved landscaping, my antique-style light fixtures, and even the wrought iron fence I'd painstakingly restored. Attached was a bill for fines totaling $500. I was furious. I called the number on the letterhead, and Evelyn, the HOA president with a voice as sharp as broken glass, informed me that my property was, in fact, under their jurisdiction. She claimed a recent county ordinance had absorbed all properties within the HOA. When I asked to see this ordinance, she became evasive and told me to just pay the fines and comply. I told her I would do no such thing and hung up. The battle had begun. The letters kept coming, each one more aggressive than the last. The fines began to snowball. First it was $500, then $1,000, then $5,000. They were fining me for every single detail that made my historic home unique. They wanted me to replace my beautiful, wavy, century-old glass windows with standard vinyl ones. They demanded I tear out my rose garden and plant the same generic shrubs as everyone else. It felt like they wanted to erase every bit of character, every bit of history, and turn my dream home into another beige box. I hired a lawyer who confirmed my suspicions. My property was indeed exempt. He sent the HOA a strongly worded cease and desist letter outlining the legal status of my home. We thought that would finally put an end to the harassment. For a few weeks, there was silence. I started to breathe again, hoping the nightmare was over. Then came the knock on the door. It wasn't a mailman. It was a county sheriff's deputy. My heart sank. He looked uncomfortable, holding a thick packet of documents. He explained that the HOA had placed a lien on my property for unpaid fines, which had now ballooned to an absurd $50,000. He handed me an official-looking document. It was a notice of foreclosure. The HOA was trying to seize my home. The deputy then delivered the final chilling message from Evelyn. "Pay what you owe, or we will get a court order to demolish the non-compliant structure." Demolish it. They were threatening to destroy my home, to bulldoze a 100-year-old piece of history because they didn't like the color of its paint. I felt like the world was crumbling around me. I had poured every ounce of my being into this house. The thought of it being reduced to a pile of rubble was unbearable. The sheriff, to his credit, seemed sympathetic. He quietly suggested I contact the local historical society and the media. He said he was just doing his job, but that something about the situation felt deeply wrong. That was the spark I needed. I wasn't just fighting for my house anymore. I was fighting for history, for the principle that you can't bully someone into erasing the past. I spent the entire night drafting emails, calling reporters, and reaching out to every historical preservation group I could find. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The local news station was the first to arrive. A reporter interviewed me on my front porch, with the beautifully restored mansion as the backdrop. I told them everything about finding the house, the labor of love, the escalating harassment from the HOA, and their final, horrifying threat. The story aired that evening. My phone started ringing off the hook. People were outraged. The local historical society released a powerful statement condemning the HOA's actions, calling my home a local treasure. Online, the story went viral. A Save the Mansion page popped up and thousands of people shared their support. The HOA's Facebook page was flooded with angry comments. The pressure was mounting. Suddenly, the HOA, which had been so aggressive, went completely silent. Their lawyers stopped returning my lawyer's calls. The next thing I knew, a formal letter arrived, not from the HOA, but from the county attorney's office. It stated that after a review, they had determined the HOA's claim over my property was erroneous and invalid. The supposed ordinance they had cited simply did not exist. They had been bluffing, using fraudulent claims and intimidation to try and force me into submission. The lien was immediately removed, and the county launched an investigation into the HOA's predatory practices. Evelyn, the woman with a sharp voice, resigned a week later amidst the scandal. Standing on my porch a few weeks after the dust had settled, I looked out at my beautiful, quirky, non-compliant home. The vintage cream paint seemed to glow in the afternoon sun. The cast-iron mailbox stood proudly by the curb. The roses were in full bloom. I had one, but it was a sobering victory. It showed me how easily a dream can be threatened by greed and a thirst for control. My fight had not only saved my home, but had also exposed a corrupt system, hopefully protecting others from going through the same ordeal. This house had stood for over 100 years, surviving storms and the passage of time. Now, it had survived an HOA, and I knew deep in my heart that we were both here to stay. Thank you so much for watching and for all your support during this insane journey. It meant the world to me. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button and subscribe to Care and Conflict for more updates on the mansion. See you next time.